We're up
Finally.
to part 6, Roland. Here we go, mate. Let me just activate my camera here. Hopefully you can
Hey,
see me all right.
yeah.
How you
Finally.
going, brother?
Yeah, good. I had some glitches this morning. I couldn't get it running for some reason.
Not a
Um,
problem,
yeah, gorgeous day. How are
isn't
you?
it? Yeah, I'm
Mm.
great. Thank you. It is a beautiful day. I was looking down my paddocks here and been burning some more fires over the last couple of days. So they kept up overnight, and I'll head down after our chat and
Mm.
keep them stoked up. How's your
Yeah,
weekend been so far?
yeah, good.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm down at Marimbula Way today,
Yep.
and
Beautiful.
yeah, I'm going back this afternoon. I'm gonna catch a flight back to Maria.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, just
What's
easier
the
that way.
what's the flight time from there to Maria? Only half an hour or so.
Yeah, all up. Yeah,
Yeah.
but there's about 17 minutes in the air.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
pretty quick. Every now and then, I just, if I can stop myself driving, I drive a lot down this way. So most weekends I'm here.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, so just try to, make a bit of a variety, make it easier for me too.
Yeah, absolutely.
Um,
Yeah, it's
mm,
such a great service. We live in a very lucky country to be able to have aircraft that can whisk us around through the skies from town to town, and you
yeah,
know, big safe vehicles that get us around. Not
yeah,
like many other countries. So got
mm.
to enjoy it while it lasts, mate.
Hey, that's exactly right.
So, look, we've had a few messages over the last week in between chats, and some of them are very interesting.
Mm,
I'm really keen to explore, particularly the technology in phones and what it can do to scan our faces, to record information, to surveil us, and other things.
yeah,
Because I think that's definitely one of the core challenges of the future. Particularly, we talked in the last part about what sort of matrix is it, or are there multiple matrices, and is there one that exists currently, and will one be developed potentially by future general artificial intelligence?
yeah,
So there's interesting, we're in kind of that transition period where there may be multiple matrices kind of appearing or being created. So maybe
mm,
we kick off on that subject. Before we do, just to recap, we got in our fifth part of our chat, we deep dived into the concept or the metaphor of kind of this simple word orbit, and
mm,
how potentially a lot of the unseen systems in our universe somehow have an orbiting type relationship with other
mm.
structures that are of the same frequency. So, we talked about all the way from the quantum to the cosmic level, orbits begin between similar substances or frequencies or material. So
Yeah,
that's where we got, and consciousness. I think we included in that potentially because aligned consciousnesses may very well um, orbit each other, and so I think we kind of
yeah,
tied those threads together a little bit in the last episode. So that kind of gives us context for moving into this part 6, if you're happy to dive there. So we've got AI presenting itself as a as something that can be used by governments or technocratic type establishments to um, potentially know everything about us and surveil us. But worse than that, maybe it's able to create structures around us that we don't know, and it might already be doing that using light. And I think uh, the uh, the video that you shared with me is maybe a good way of kind of starting to go into this subject. So the human eye can only see a spectrum of light, a very small part of the spectrum, and that visible section, the part that we take for granted and see, is only a very small part of what is actually happening out there. So the video basically goes into a hypothesis that our phones using an infrared level of light can flash at different speeds or frequencies, maybe subconsciously transmit information to human brains.
100%.
But maybe it's also talking to other artificial intelligence systems in it's almost like a codified way of communication that we might not even understand yet, and they might be talking to themselves if they've gotten smart enough, and they're not sending lines of text. They're not even having to exchange satellite data up and down linked. They might be able to communicate without us knowing, just by emitting infrared light in pulses. What are your thoughts about this sort of beginning of another matrix that we can't see?
So again, if we come down to the same idea that things are getting rediscovered, or we find a way to actually manifest or capture these things. It's not so much that we created these things; we just discovered, or we're able to channel in. As you're right, I think that sort of communication is being present, existing. Like, just say, for instance, the radio. When Marconi, whatever, or obviously those big minds that they were experimenting with these, and they found that they actually can transmit and receive information just through the ether. Was a massive breakthrough or discovery in that sense. Doesn't mean that didn't exist. We just rediscover it. We just tap into it. We just maybe understand it. That doesn't mean that it wasn't present in our life in some way or other. And
Yes.
we just getting to the probably the surface of understanding that the truth is that things are surround us as all vibration, frequency, and energy, and then it's constant. So for us to be able to tap in or understand is new to us, but it's a technology which I think it's been existing quite some time. So since the beginning.
Yeah, yeah.
And yeah.
I think when you look at, we could talk about light being the medium of the unseen information, subconscious information, call it that. But infrared light's just one spectrum or modality of information being transmitted. So, as you've rightly pointed out, using frequencies through the atmosphere, using AM radio, FM radio, high frequency, those pulses can be picked up on certain antennas.
Yes.
The length of the antenna will be tuned to the length of the vibration. So, the
Yeah.
human body could unwittingly or possibly even knowingly be attuned to wavelengths that are being put through the atmosphere by projects, defense projects, other things potentially. Nefarious nations might choose to use satellites to pulse waves of or frequencies in waves that we can't detect, but
Yeah.
they are very much there. And maybe like the infrared cameras on our phones, maybe they're subtly over time creating an effect on humans. The effect
Yes.
might be the effect could be nefarious in that it's making us sicker intentionally because of maybe there's globalist agendas to reduce population. Maybe it's to just subdue us enough to control us. Maybe it's to limit our brain waves. So I guess in understanding that militaries are moving towards what they call electromagnetic pulse weapons, and other technologies that involve using frequency at scales that can create nausea and vomiting in people, all the way through to making them feel like they're burning, either metaphorically or literally. These lasers can be turned up and burnt and literally disintegrate things.
Microwaves, yes, correct.
Yeah.
It's mind-blowing in that sense. I'm just keep thinking about the interchangeable aspects of the vibration and frequencies. As much as we tap into audio, we can do audio visual. And as you just said, if we are a receiver and our brain is a hardware, we are able to pick up those signals without actually be knowing or having a conscious knowledge of that. So yeah, it's really possible, and we're discovering that these technologies already been existing. Just because we found out now means that they're much further with this technology, and they're scary. And what we can do about it. Very interesting statistics I listened to the other day. In our lifespan, today's society generation, we spend about 20 years out of our life on our phone. 20 years. So let's say an average man lives till 75, 80, let's say 80 years old. From that on, the quarter of it spent on useless looking at a screen. And if we think that this technology is able to affect our behavior, thinking, and our actions and our maybe social interactions, it's very would be we have to take it seriously.
Yeah, yeah. And government or regulators have not kept up with the pace of technological development. And I remember a few years ago being really hopeful when worldwide governments were talking about putting guardrails on technology and coming up with regulations to help try and manage this exponential development of technology until we understood it. And they just dropped the ball. They didn't get the regulations in, and now it's the Wild West out there. These technologies are being used in war in real time now to test their capabilities, which is a scary thought. It's not a simulation for those people living in those countries. These this dystopic future that you watch in the Hunger Games and other things is happening to people in the Donbass and in Iran at the moment. So we're essentially entering into a dystopian nightmare. And as you said, what do you do about that? If they do have technologies that are 20, 30, 100 years more advanced than what the public know.
Sorry.
Hello.
Hey,
Welcome to the
Roland.
chat.
Morning.
Good to see you.
You too. How are you?
Yeah, I'm great. Thank you. Yeah. Sorry for holding Roland up for these tinfoil hat chats.
No need to apologize. You two are doing great. Interesting stuff.
It is. It's good fun, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I got to shoot to work, so enjoy.
Yeah.
I'm going to give him a kiss.
All right. Have a great day.
I love you too. Have a good day. I'll see you soon. Sorry. Yeah,
good.
so I'm not going to see her for a couple of hours. So she has off to work. Yeah, so you're correct. But I got a bit.
No, that's all right. So we've covered quite a lot of ground already.
Yes.
These technologies are being leveraged already in other countries, which are creating dystopic realities for them, very similar to what we watch in what we think is fiction, the Hunger Games or other things. So we're already going down that slippery slope. As a collective world, we're heading towards a dystopic future. And I understand, sometimes it can border on despair because the average person, the common man, might feel like they haven't got any power to make any significant change in this. But
Yeah.
I think that is probably the reason why you and I are chatting at its core.
Yeah.
Right. So there is that power within each individual, and so that gives me hope, right? So you could have all of this despair because the forces of evil are rising, but chats like this give me hope, because if people can find another person to orbit and start to have a chat, they might then start to orbit around some other people that want to have a chat, and that's how the most beautiful creations can happen.
I agree. And I believe that it's more and more people, even if you don't know, they're waking up. Obviously, if the devil's in at work, I'm pretty sure the opposition is doing the same, and that's what we should do to be able to make a difference. Yeah, I'm just trying to think. It's the world is going mad at the moment. Don't know if you heard about. I probably shared something about the big migration of animals are leaving Yellowstone. A lot of volcanoes going up in the same time. Alaska, Malaysia, and then Yellowstone. Texas had flash floods. I'm pretty sure they had tsunamis as well, just on the 14th of July and some 17th of July. A lot of people in that areas are struggling.
Yeah.
And then it's just one segment of the whole world is going a little bit of pear shape. Yesterday, July the 19th, I'm pretty sure WHO initiative go online. So Australia signed papers, unfortunately, same as Canada, the UK, and New Zealand. Australia is part of it. Basically, we handed over our rights. We didn't have a chance to actually say anything about this. The government went ahead and did it, and that's should raise some alarms in people's head. We don't want to repeat 2021. We know how that went down and how many people got affected by it. So as much as it's a lot of destructions, where we can actually get our focus can be.
There's a lot of distraction. You're right. But I think it's the distraction is because we have access to information like never before. So the technology, in my view, is giving us the distraction. We can choose to accept it or not. But I think it doesn't take away from the fact that, as you said, things seem like they're chaotic and things are going crazy, or people are going crazy. And I agree with you. I can see the tempo speeding up in society. I can see people being, at the end of their tether, overworked, tired, maybe financially insecure, unstable. So I see that as a more common theme everywhere I go. Relationships are breaking down. There seems to be something in the air, let's say, that is making people a little bit crazy. I guess you've made me think of a couple of things when you said that. So we know there's evidence that the moon affects people's behavior. So, in controlled populations like prisons or other areas where they can monitor people, they know that around the time of a full moon, certain people, or certain statistically, certain numbers of people that are outside the normal range will do strange things. You know, they might become more emotional. They might act out in different ways. So, and there's generally more crime around the full moon time.
Wow.
And there's a lot of love as well. It creates, you know, people want to kiss and walk under the light of a full moon. So the moon has an effect that is measurable, and there's evidence to show that the moon plays a role in the human psyche, and maybe it's connected in a matrix we don't understand. And I think, you know, we can go into a chat about how important the moon, I'll call it Te Marama, which is in Maori, indigenous language from New Zealand, is the name of the moon. It's actually, incidentally, my middle name. But so this moon that's always been part of the human psyche, you know, humans have only ever known a moon being in the sky. And so it's played a role culturally. It's scientifically played a role in orbiting the Earth and creating a symbiotic relationship to allow us to become who we are. So without the moon, we wouldn't exist. Now, that's just an example of, you know, planetary style orbits that work well. But I found a really interesting thing out the other day. I was talking to my dad, who incidentally I put up the first part of our chat just the other day. Good chat with my dad. I had the second part of my chat with him yesterday, and
Nice.
yeah, he's a lovely guy. So I encourage anyone that's listening to our chats to start to listen to me and my dad. But came up with an interesting point of conversation, and that was that the moon was actually rotating or orbiting around the Earth a little bit differently to what it normally does. It's in a stable orbit, but every now and then, the way that the elliptical orbits work, it actually speeds up the time on planet Earth. So, you know, its connection to the Earth, you know, to a human, it would be imperceivable because it's 0.1 of a second or something like that. But we were laughing about it because I actually said to my partner, Kat, on that day, I said it feels like time is speeding up. And we're all.
I had literally had this conversation with somebody 2 days ago, exactly like this. And what I actually said that, you know, I always have to adjust my car. I've got a digital clock in my car built in. I always have to adjust it to match the internet time, which is
Right.
almost everything now automatically adjusts. Like your phone, you turn it on, it gives you the time and the date and whatnot. Now, I've got a quartz timekeeper in the car, which I'm pretty sure is pretty accurate. Quartz are used obviously in atomic clocks,
Yes.
which are supposed to be the most accurate clock. Now, what would it would take to say, let's speed up just a little bit the time so we don't really notice, but the year just flew, and we feel that January was just yesterday, like how we perceive this, and that made me think, and hence one of the reasons I don't like to celebrate my birthday, because it's almost like slap in the face, you know, and a year older, so you're closer to grave. We really, we really, I believe that we're much younger than we think. And it comes down to how you perceive reality, yourself, and what you believe. I believe that the creation of the mind creates our reality. So some people say you're as old as you feel. And that should be how we perceive our aging in that sense. And you say that it feels like it's speeding up. It is. It gives you that feeling. And we know that the moon cycles are pretty spot on, 28 days, 13 months to a year. right?
Yes.
And we're going by a different timekeeper. So we don't even really know what date it is today in that sense.
Yes. Yeah, it does make sense.
Mm.
And it's interesting that humans have tried to manage time and not just leave it to be the intrinsic natural time clock that exists.
Yep.
This is just comes back to our ego in a lot of ways,
Mm.
and part of the complexity that we've created for ourselves. Think
Mm.
about how many billions of dollars, trillions over time, it costs to manage time when really it's
Mm.
existing and we don't need to manage it.
Right.
it,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
humans can overcomplicate things in the most wonderful ways and diabolical ways.
True. That's so true. Yes, that's true. Sometimes accepting it and then just go with it probably the way to go. And more,
Yeah,
you get more out of life.
yeah,
Um, so it's times because we are almost like we are slave of this system. I get
mm,
up at 5:30 every morning to get to work, do my job, go home, do my thing. Sun goes down, do it again. I mean that vicious cycle, and they want to keep us sedated in that sense. Back to the idea about how much our phone is affecting our reality. You don't have to go too scientific or too crazy. Um, just to see how much time we spend on our phone. Imagine you go into a class to learn a new skill or a new, to absorb more information. That's certainly going to change your worldview, the everyday life of yours or everybody's with micro decisions and whatnot. How much, if you spend 2.5 hours watching videos, looking at a scroll or whatever, or getting information through this little black box, it has to have a tremendous amount of impact on each and individuals. And has been
yes,
tracked and has been looked at and adjusted. So now we know AI is almost everywhere, and we got personally catered or created um, themes and videos
mm,
curated. Sorry, that's the word. Which we are interested in, and then you see those people who try to hack the AI matrix and trying to create meaningful discussions on reality with ChatGPT or whatever. And it's interesting how every individual could have the same question, getting a different answer.
mm, mm,
Curated how they thinking, what's the pattern they put in, what the video they like, what they swipe quicker, all that algorithm getting captured and personalized, and in such a scale that we can watch the same video, and then the next video would what you get would support your ideology, but
yes.
maybe
So
the
it's going.
next, yeah,
Yeah. So I think they there's a word for it, but I think it's something like predictive AI modeling of
yeah,
videos and other things. So essentially, my understanding of where it's going to be is every advert is going to be tailored directly to you and your thoughts because it understands you, and so
yeah,
advertisers are going to be able to have these machines essentially showing you everything you want to see, and it'll be almost irresistible. It would probably know, as I'm just going to throw this out there. You create a lot of music and it understands, if it was able to get a hold of your music collection and then analyze it,
mm,
it would understand the way you think and how you create music. Um,
yeah,
and so it's going to, in one incarnation, it's going to be able to write music as well as you do potentially. But then
it
with
does.
yeah, and from here it makes humans obsolete, because it will then be able to create potentially uh, sounds or music that are almost like spells to people. And you know, it might entrance people and create emotive states in people that we just can't even predict yet. You know, we don't know how the most perfect sound, whether it's an orchestra, or whether it's the sound of nature or whatever, how that might actually impact a human if it was done very effectively, and tailored to that human psychology. It could be used as a terrible weapon as well. But I think that sort of artificial intelligence future isn't too far away with the general intelligence that they're claiming is around the
Yeah.
corner, in the next 12
Yes.
months or so.
Mm.
So that's just what they're telling us. And it comes back to what you mentioned earlier. The military for a long time openly acknowledged that their best weapons, their most advanced technologies, were 20 to 30 years ahead of whatever was being, talked about
Showcase.
publicly.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Correct.
we've got to assume that, the AGI they're talking about coming out next year actually came out around 2000 or something. And they've been using it in the background to build systems like Palantir and other Skynet style things.
Yes. Yes.
So we've got to assume that that's the case. If you don't, you're already behind the ball. You're not ahead of the curve. So you've got to assume the worst and hope for the best. But so long as you
Yeah.
know what the game is, you got to establish these parts of the game that we've been talking about. And I think you've got to assume that something like Palantir, will become autonomous weapon systems in the near future. But it already exists as a Skynet, and it's being used in theaters of war now. So you have to assume that AGI was probably developed 20, 30 years ago. It is now in a Skynet, and they're waiting to press the button to make it go autonomous, which sounds very much like a movie we all watched back in the 90s.
Right.
80s.
It's true.
Yeah, it is. It's scary, but that's one of the players on the board. There could be an artificial general intelligence that's lurking in the system already. And we've got time. Luckily, we can still talk about it, and that gives me hope. Because if this system was determined to be malevolent, it could have done it, I think, already in the system, but it's obviously got some guardrails. But our one might. The enemy's one might not. So we'll see how that goes.
Yes. Yeah, you're right. And so if you think about technologies already existing or existed, someone figured it out, why can't we use it for our advantage? And that's what we're trying to do, obviously. So what do you think? What do you think the next big destruction is going to be for humanity in that sense, in
So
the near future?
yeah, so I struggle with dates or times, but I can see patterns, and so the patterns could be extended in time, but the pattern exists nonetheless. So, in other words, I kind of like to talk about things evolving, but the time frames I talk about are flexible. So, I guess what I see occurring, one of the biggest challenges is that we're in a cold and hot war in some places between East and West. There's a polarity emerging in the world. It's going to go from a multipolar world, and it will become a bipolar world between East and West, because eventually everyone's going to have to pick a side with the biggest guy on the block. And so essentially we're headed towards open conflict on, in the South China Sea front, probably in that area. So we've seen it go hot over in Europe. We've seen it go hot now in the Middle East, and it continues. And the next front will be in the South China Sea, in my view. That is like, probably also going to kick off back in Pakistan and India again, because that wasn't resolved. Everything's just on hold, and everyone's holding their breath, essentially waiting for what happens next. But I see the biggest chaos erupting in the South China Sea. The problem with that is that, in my view, I think it will trigger the West to declare war. I think it will involve a mobilization of Western countries to a level that current generations have never experienced, and it's going to change society. And I think in some societies there'll be social unrest in Western nations, so that will lead to chaos. And I guess that all, if we can get to a mobilization point, if that is what occurs and people have to be mobilized, if we can do an orderly mobilization, I think that's the best case scenario, because I think what's going to happen is it's going to become disorderly, because I think at the time things pop off in the South China Sea, I think that we're going to get internet and power shutdowns all around the world through either cyber attacks or through our own government wanting to limit the information and make our populations just stop, and essentially coordinate the resources like fuel and other things towards defence purposes.
So I don't know if you know that in New South Wales and I think a couple of other regions in Australia, they locking up all the national park four-wheel drive trails, and they already been put gates up pretty much everywhere to prevent people to enter or travel within those terrains, which I think people should be concerned. Almost like it's a systematic way of taking away options where, if, for instance, another lockdown happens, God forbid, we sort of limited what we can do and where we can go. And again, it's just reflecting on controlling the population, make sure everybody is in its place, and we don't rebel.
Yeah.
And yes.
Yeah. Look, I'm seeing that control over public spaces, in the most acute way. Obviously, being in the industry and understanding how that works, it is something that's ongoing in Australia. There's the lockdown of those public spaces, particularly to vehicles. So they're kind of they're saying that it's protecting the environment, and but unfortunately what's happening is they're locking the gates, and the roads become impassable over time because no one maintains them. And then you can't manage the forest anymore. It becomes overgrown with other things, and eventually you get wildfires running through that can't be stopped because it's unmanaged land. It just becomes wilderness, and probably maintaining the tracks may cause more vehicles to move through those places. But if they just made the roads better through those places, the vehicles wouldn't do damage, and we would have the access to those resources. People could, as you say, if they need to leave their home, at least within a forest, there is the potential for some drinking water and other things. Is that kind of what you're getting at?
Well, it's just to just say so the freedom of travel, which should be your ultimate civil human rights, right? Yeah. It's already been limited in by road rules. You can't drive there, you can't drive there, you can't park there, you can't go in there, you can't leave your car there, you can't enter there. And national parks were the place where people who can't afford to go to expensive hotels or retreats or this and that and other, they're able to go out to take their family and camp. and
Yep.
obviously is also enable to people to take shortcuts or on areas or regions where they're not monitored in the sense. It's not just that they locked or blocked the gates, but I'm pretty sure they have active um, dedicated forces to monitor that those gates are remain shut and that people just don't come around and cutting locks off and do whatever they want. In that sense, it's still it's an interesting thing came to my head flying into Marimbula on Friday. You know how they have the stewardess or the flight attendant explains your safety. This is what you need to do. You can't do this. No smoking. Blah blah blah. And we hear this for multiple times. The people who came from Sydney landed Maria. I came in and she just explained the same thing again. They already heard probably twice, and make me think. We sound like we are children. We've been
Yes.
treated as babies who had we can't critically think. If we know the rules and we are part of society and we are functioning in this society with our best abilities or best of our abilities, uh, it feels like that. And I always had this sense, since I was a child in class, the militant way of structuring these regimented frames that we are have to live under. I still feel that by doing these small actions as such, keep people's mind in a baby state. We just got along because we're used to it. We've been hearing this for over and over again. It's engraved into our personality that it's normal. But if you think critically, I'm 47 years old next month. I know these things. We learn these things. We're not stupid, but we've been treated as such.
Yes.
What is it? What does it tell you? It tells you that the system, not just they treat us, but they see us as children that they need to be managed.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Yeah. I agree.
what it creates, and then if you look at today's generations, the people, teenagers, and to become adults. So I'm talking about 18, 20 years old. We can already see the contrast from our generations, and I'm pretty sure that happened to our ancestors, our grandfathers. Looked at us saying, what life you live, I don't think you would be able to survive 50 years ago. And so we know that the family unions has been attacked. The people to be able to socialize, converse, even trade or come together is the main target. So people who are able to think outside of the box and say maybe follow the rules and regulations as it should be, but to actually think and stop. These are the rules and regulations brought by man, or is the rules and regulations that God's want me to live by? Best of my ability. And you're going to see conflict. You're going to see a restriction in our abilities to be able to be the best in society, individually, family, work, whatever it is.
Yes.
And it's systematic. So we see the degradation in social interactions, but also identities. So we have all these prefixes now in before people's names, and it's an absolute chaos, upside down, back to front, including the feminist uh, movements, which takes away the masculinity of the man and the pillar of society, and it turned against us and make us feel guilty if we think this differently.
Yeah.
So what I'm saying is that as much as technologies affect us in that sense, because the information pool is huge, and we're trying to navigate between these stuff. In the end of the day, we have to go back the really basics and see, okay, what can we do? So it says technology is a problem. How can we shut it out? How can we make it so it serves us in some sense, and make space for real social interactions when people can come together? Because you can't exchange that. When people come together, you have a unity, you have a feel, energy. As you said, we orbit around
Yes.
each other, and that's something government knows that it's
Yes.
dangerous. And that's why all the first restrictions were you weren't allowed to travel or see your family, spouse, friends. If you gathered together, the police was out there and it took actions.
Yeah.
That's not new. I'm a Hungarian post-communist country, as we know. Gathering was a big no.
Yeah.
So even the communist system wasn't as drastically uh, brutal than some other countries like Romania and some other parts of the old Soviet Union. We still had to obey. We had restrictions. We couldn't do this. We couldn't do that. We had to attend on the October 6 ceremonies to say Hitler is our dad, our hero. Sorry, not Hitler. Sorry, Lenin and Stalin, not Hitler. My bad. That was funny. But again, so
Yep.
fuck. No, I'm and we were convinced as kids that we live and die for the system. Like
Yes.
we I was completely proud and standing there with the big red flags and Lenin and Stalin in the background, and we singing hymns and all that and learning about it as such. And then revolution came, and then history changed, and it's that simple. A new generation is given different books to learn from, and we've been spoon-fed with a new reality.
Yeah.
And so information in that sense, coming from a third source or the source of whatever it is, government or teachers or whatever, has to be managed and controlled to benefit the people who want to control
Yeah.
and
I
rule.
agree. Yes. Yeah, we're already pre-programmed and we don't even know it. And well, you and I know it, but like a lot of the population doesn't want to accept that. And in some
Because they
ways,
sedated.
yeah, and I don't want to get too far into the weeds with people that hold qualifications and things like psychology or other things, but we have a whole new class of professional out there that didn't exist, 40 years ago, and that is psychologists,
Exactly.
So
Yeah.
how much of what they've been taught that they really believe is the truth about things, are they now
Yes.
enforcing on a
Yes.
population? And we've got to accept
Yes.
that as, the truth. I agree. We're in a very interesting time, and I guess humans have overcomplicated everything because there's reasons to. There's power and control for by regulating things and creating more laws. Um, Laws being legislation and regulation and all of that sort of thing. It's getting more and more complex, and the more laws they create, the more complex the system becomes. The more money there is to be made. The less freedoms there are for others, and the ruling elite get more privilege. So the laws become a very complex. I see them geometrically as well.
Yeah.
But below laws, human-made laws, I see ancient laws that are the truth of humanity. And so those laws I would spell them LORES, those laws. So ancient law. And I guess one way that I try and remain stable amongst the chaos out there is just to remember geometrically what the strongest structure is amidst chaos. And so the way I kind of, I've got just a simple drawing here in my notebook. And basically it's, I don't know if the camera's going to pick it up, but it's a triangle, right? So a triangle.
No, it doesn't. You need to move it a bit.
Yeah, I don't know. It probably isn't popping up, but anyway,
No.
it's just a simple triangle, and triangles are structurally, geometrically, a sound, robust structure that will survive forces. So they used triangles in masonry and other things over time to stabilize buildings. Okay, so lintel stones, inverted and all of that sort of stuff. So triangles form a key structural, I guess, metaphor for how do we stabilize ourselves as humans in a chaotic existence where we're orbiting other people and consciousnesses and all of those other systems that we've talked about from micro to macro levels. And I got to thinking about the triangle as being a good basis for the human condition. Because if you've got a good structure, then, not only can you survive the storms out there, but other people that have strong structures can lock in and you create better structures over time. So a good example of it is kind of like, I don't know if you can see this, but it's a little triangle. It's actually got some numbers on it. It's a dice, right? But for now, you can see a triangle. And in that triangle, in my view, you could metaphorically say a human is within the triangle. Now, the reason why I say that is humans, in my view, only need three real things. And one is their identity. So one of the points of the triangle. One is love. To exist in this world and make any sort of difference, you've got to have love. And creation. So that creative spirit, art, music,
Children.
engineering, children, creation. So, but that's all really nice. That's a nice structure and it will work. The more humans that have those three things will be better for their communities and ultimately be better for humankind. If you miss one of those things, then the structure will collapse.
I agree.
So now all I'm going to do is turn this so you can see it as the dice, and it adds one more corner.
Yeah.
Now it makes it three-dimensional, but it creates one more point. And that is, if you can hold that structure over the last point, which is time, you now have a place in space-time. So the structure is the human as a triangle. Over time, which is the last part of triangle, because you must maintain your identity, your love, and your creative spirit over that, which forms the perfect, robust structure, which is coincidentally what many ancient civilizations used to memorialize the human condition, pyramids.
Right.
So I think what maybe we're missing in society is a simple understanding of ourselves and how to be the best we can be. And if we can start from basics from here, from the best structure known to physics to more complex structures that include people that might orbit, through to things like, as I've kind of put on my logo, the Shugio nested fourth dimension.
It gets blurred out, I think, because of the whatever. Okay, nice. It looks like a little cube.
Yeah, it's a little cube. But does it look familiar? It's the Shugio
Yeah,
Mon
yeah,
that I use.
yes.
So
A cube. It's an
yeah,
interesting
so
one.
I like to play in that space because what it can do is it can kind of give geometric awareness of not just simple structures like law and laws, which become more complex over time, but just the
Yeah.
human condition. So it's a visual way of kind of understanding that. I think everyone needs to find their own way of doing it, but I think some people find it through understanding religious texts and the immense detail ancient scholars went to explaining the human condition. So there are ways of finding it. I just really like the thought of geometrics across different planes, material planes, but also consciousness planes.
You're right. Geometry and the understanding of the universe, they're related. They connected. Uh, how interesting is that? So mathematics, and we talk about Pythagoras and all that. I don't know if we talked about it last time, but
Yep.
so they had their own secret teaching. They had their own group, certain way of living. Mm. And that was the crucial element of the
Mm,
geometric, the geometry. And we know that the Kabbalah and all the so above, so below, we got the two triangles, and that
mm,
creates the star of, they say David, but it's actually a Solomon seal, a seal of
mm,
Solomon. And we know how much it correlates to dark art or magic or whatever. And we can go down a deep dive on that plane. You spot on. So nothing really changed. Geometrics and fractals and all that. It's they creating our universe. An interesting thing I want to add to this is Howard. What's his name? Lawrence Howard was talking about the sound and the elements and the relation to those. So, for instance, oxygen, I think what was a hydrogen is a E, oxygen is a F sharp, or other way around, F to F sharp. So we're talking about the sound connection with um, elements or in atomic form, and how, and we were talking about the brain waves and how much we actually see and how much our brain makes the rest of
mm,
it up and
mm,
fill the gaps and all that stuff. Um, and we don't see reality as it is because we have limited vision or visual capabilities.
mm.
So you're absolutely spot on. So for us to understand geometry, the relation between these shapes, reality, and uh, spirituality it's connected. So with your shapes, where do you place them? Where do you put them in your spiritual understanding, or how does that affect your understanding or your actual existence in this?
Yeah. So shapes and geometry just are like a scaffolding system that
Yeah.
I use to as a lens to see the world. So starting at internally, it's the only place to begin, right?
Yeah.
Because you have to understand yourself before you can even consider understanding another person properly. um,
Yes.
and uh, and then from there you can maybe start to understand the world. So I've done a lot of introspection, and I've tried to consolidate through the lens of martial arts. I've tried to consolidate my thoughts about how to create a system that is stable over time, that gives identity, that allows people to be part of a community, you know, love, and is creative in a process of, you know, their body becomes better, stronger. You know, they might have opportunities that flow on from this. So there's a creative process in that. And if I maintain that over time, we have a solid structure that can go on existing without me, right? So that's even more important. Now, because I would like to be able to think that whatever I can create lasts over time.
Yes.
So I guess I initially put my thoughts into that process, and it's just a way of understanding what's required to create a stable structure. And if you remain authentic to that, the structure will remain stable, subject to any outside forces coming in and actively trying to take it away. So
yes,
that's how I started. So introspection, but starting simple and just trying to find out, well, what is the most simple, stable structure there is? And that's what it looks like. That's what the most simple, stable structure is. So if I am, if I'm going to be that, how do I then understand myself in a way that I can then communicate to another person so that they can build their own stable structure and weather the storm? And perhaps the stable structures can come together over time in orbits and create constellations that are robust and will stand up over time. Now, you know, you could go, right, over time, we've got, you know, this developing, you've got a cluster of geometrical structures that orbit each other perfectly and sit in a frequency, you know, that's perfect. That's great, but modern society creates something more like this, you know, with 100 sides, because we have to exist as this original pyramid somewhere within a complex structure made up by laws and legislations from the state level through to globalists who are trying to control the structure.
Correct.
So geometrically, if we understand the structures, they're like the game boards at each level. And so you have to start simple before you get to complex. But simple will always be better than complex at the end of the day. So if we can build everything simply from the ground up, you can get more and more complex because it won't collapse under one of the corners not being strong.
I really like, I
Yeah.
really like how you started this structure with identity, and that should be the foundation of everybody's existence, because that's the first thing is taken away for us to be destabilized.
Yes.
And you're right, you're absolutely right. So people don't know who they are, and this is literally your life mission, to find that and to use that, what God give you to that sense. If you don't know who you are, you don't know where you come from, and you have no fucking clue where you're going.
Exactly.
You're just existing, and that's not what we're here for. And you said that maybe you have love and creativity, but you don't have identity. You're going to use them to elements that essentially not structured. So it's deemed to fail. Identity is the most important, and people who actually haven't woken up because they have no clue who they are and why they are here for. So I love that, and I completely agree. So identity is the must. I mean, we saw in history people were doing, they just live life hedonistically, whatnot, and then live for pleasure, and then they find an old book and they start reading, and I said, hold on a second, we are these people and we shouldn't do this, and the reason why we struggle because we're doing the wrong thing.
Yes.
And doesn't exclude or exclude love and creativity, because essentially we can see nations are built massive communities and structures where the identity was falsified. They're going in a direction where is destructions follow.
Yes.
So instead of harmony and again, harmony is in the sense we know that the harmony is something pleasant to listen to. If it's in this harmony, it hurts our ear.
Yes.
It gives us a bad vibe. And for us to be in the same wavelength, the identity is the foundation. You need to know who we are.
Yes. It's the cornerstone.
Cornerstone.
Yes. And I'm really pleased that we got to this part of the chat, because kind of from here we can start to build the layers of the game board. If you can understand the geometrics of yourself, or the plane of existence that you are on, then you can start to see the other planes, and we can fill them out much easier. So this is exciting, really cool.
It is.
Mate, we've been talking for quite a while again. I should probably,
Yeah,
I know. So I apologize for holding you up, but
no.
it was once again a great chat, brother.
Yeah, I enjoying these because, again, we make that to happen. We create that space. It's so important, and if we can actually televise this to other people, we might get some people resonating with the same ideas. We don't recruiting people. It's not about that. It's about making people aware that they need to work on to find their purpose.
Yeah.
And that real purpose is in servitude to a great cause. And you say it, without the structure, we're going to be abolished. We're going to go, and it's
Now,
nothing going to hold us in place. So yes, I'm excited. I'm very glad to have these chats, and I think we're on something.
I think we are
100%.
too, brother. Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah. I'm happy to be on this quest with you. All
Yeah,
right.
lovely.
You have a great afternoon, and we'll chat soon.
You too. Enjoy. Thank you.